gloved hand brushes sand from a surface. The grains fall. One corner of what lies beneath is visible, nothing more. But in that single moment, that corner of exposed stone in a field in Egypt in 2026, an entire city that had been walked past for 2,000 years finally had a name. The map of the world, which we thought was finished, silently expanded by one threshold. For 2,000 years, people walked over this ground. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Caravans, farmers, soldiers, families moving through Egypt as though the earth beneath their feet was ordinary. And it was, until it wasn't, until someone finally looked down. The Byzantine settlement discovered in 2026 wasn't in a remote desert. It wasn't buried under 50 feet of sediment. It was here, on a surface that had been surveyed, mapped, walked across, and marked as unremarkable by every expedition that came before. The ruin wasn't hidden by depth or distance. It was hidden by expectation, by the assumption that every significant thing had already been found. This is what it looks like when the map is still incomplete. When you realize that the world is larger than the frame you've been given. When a corner of exposed stone, just a corner, opens a door that shouldn't exist but does. The settlement itself spans roughly 2 hectares. That's about 4.5 football fields, not enormous, not invisible, but rendered invisible by 2,000 years of walking past it. The structures that emerged as excavation began weren't grand, they were intimate, domestic. Houses with courtyards, workshops, a bathhouse, the scale of a place where people lived ordinary lives, made ordinary choices, and left behind the evidence that they were here. What made this discovery seismic wasn't the size of what was found, it was the size of what was missing from every map before it. Byzantine Egypt is supposed to be known, it's supposed to be catalogued. Cairo sits 300 kilometers to the north, close enough to have been reached, far enough to have been forgotten. The settlement falls into that gap, the space between scholarly attention and archaeological absence. When the first structures began to emerge, the team realized they were looking at a trade hub. The artifacts tell this story: ceramics from North Africa, glasswork from the Mediterranean, coins from Constantinople, textiles from Syria. This wasn't an isolated settlement, this was a crossroads, a place where the ancient world still moved through routes that we thought were documented, traced, and concluded. But here's what changes the story. Here's what makes this more than an addition to a database. The settlement shows signs of having been abandoned suddenly, not gradually, not over decades of slow decline. The evidence suggests a moment, an event, a threshold moment when something happened and people left. The pottery in the final occupation layer sits where it was dropped, cooking vessels in the ash, a space frozen at the moment of departure. 20 centuries ago, someone walked away from this place and never came back, and the ground kept it secret for 2,000 years. The question isn't who lived here. The question is what made them leave so quickly that the ordinary objects of daily life were left behind. Fire damage in the western sector, scorched stone, the marks of something sudden, not an invasion. The settlement shows no signs of siege or violence, something else, something that forced evacuation. Climate shift, earthquake, plague. The archive is incomplete. The evidence argues but doesn't conclude, and that's where the threshold opens wider, because the discovery of this settlement means reassessing every survey that came before. If a place this significant could be missed, what else have we walked past? The team has already begun re-examining satellite imagery of the surrounding region. Blank spaces on the map, zones that look like nothing from above. How many more settlements sit under these fields? How many more thresholds are there waiting for someone to finally look down? The Byzantine era in Egypt is typically understood as a period of decline. The golden age of pharaonic Egypt long past, Roman occupation exhausted, Islam not yet risen, a gap, awaiting. But this settlement argues something different. It argues for continuity, for connection, for a world that was far more networked, far more alive than the silence of the historical record suggested. People were here, they were trading, they were building. They were living ordinary lives in a place that would later be so thoroughly forgotten that 2,000 years would pass without anyone marking it. This is what it means when a map is still incomplete. Not in the sense of undiscovered continents or hidden oceans, those thresholds have mostly closed, but in the sense of layered ground, of the ordinary rendered invisible by the weight of time and assumption. Somewhere beneath the feet of archaeology is another threshold, and another. And the moment someone finally looks down, the world gets a little larger. What the 2026 discovery teaches us is this: the finished world is a lie we tell ourselves. The mapped world is a frame, not a conclusion. The places we thought we knew are still holding secrets, not in the form of legendary cities or lost civilizations, those narratives close the door, but in the form of small settlements, ordinary lives, evidence that the past was far more complex and far more present than the silence between the lines suggests. The gloved hand brushes sand from stone. The grains fall, one corner is visible, the rest remains. The threshold stands open. And for the first time in 2,000 years, this place has a name. But the real question, the one that should keep you unsettled, is this: how many other corners are waiting for someone to finally look down? How many other doors are hidden in the ordinary ground beneath our feet? The map is larger than we thought, and we've barely begun to see it.